Okay, we'll continue with the panel. Thank you very much, Muli Eden, for your incredible presentation. And I'm happy to invite Mr. Ramadorai, who is the chairman of the National Skill Development Agency, NSDA, in the rank of a cabinet minister in India. The NSDA is an autonomous body which coordinates and harmonizes the skill development efforts of the government and private sector to achieve skill targets in the nations. He is also chairman of the National Skill Development Corporation, which is a public-private partnership in the government. Ramadorai continues as vice president and chairman of Tata Consultancy Services, a company he has associated with the last 42 years. He is also chairman of the Tata companies, other Tata companies such as Tata, Elxsi, Tata Technologies, many others. He is on the boards of a number of Tata companies, educational institutions in addition. In June 2013, he was appointed to non-executive chairman of Air Asia India. In recognition of Ramadorai's commitment and dedication to the IT industry, he was awarded in January 2006 the Padma Bhushan, which is India's third highest civilian honor. And in April 2009, he was awarded as the commander of the Order of the British Empire by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for his contribution to the Indo-British economic relations. Ramadorai is a well-recognized global leader who has participated in the Indian IT journey, and he published his personal journey in his book, The TCS Story and Beyond, in 2011. Ramadorai, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to be invited to be with you and share my thoughts at the 4th Annual International Cybersecurity Conference. My wife and I just returned from a very interesting and a successful visit to Japan as part of a business leaders delegation accompanying our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. No sooner had I landed in India that it was time for me to pack my bags for this conference here in Israel and onwards to Switzerland. Preoccupied with homely matters, my wife was worried about things back home. That got me crystal gazing how things might have been different with greater pervasiveness of Internet of Things. Imagine this scenario. The refrigerator in our house senses the low provisions based on a pre-programmed list of essentials and automates an order generation to the grocery store. The store acknowledges the order on my mobile and schedules the pickup time. I notify my driverless car, which drives itself and back with goods in the boot, of course, with a little help from the store assistant. The invoice amount is cleared from my bank on the click of my mobile application. That's not a movie fantasy, but could be a reality very soon. So yes, welcome the age of the Internet of Things. Having been in the industry for over 4 decades, I've had the good fortune of being a part of the 3 waves of disruption that computing and the Internet have brought about, each of which have brought about their own amazing transformations. The first wave of the Internet of Computers, this flattened the world, breaking down knowledge barriers between nations, making one world a reality. Next came Web 2.0 that revolutionized socialization amongst humans, making the concept of one people a reality. Now all of us stand on the verge of a new wave of change that seemingly animates the inanimate, transforming the plethora of devices in our physical world into a seamless extension of ourselves. The Internet of Things, or IoT, is making a concept of one entity a reality. At the core of IoT is to bring together people, data, process, and objects or things, and connect them to communicate smartly, taking the user experience in a different level altogether. What is most exciting about this phase is that we today only make an intelligent guesstimate about its future impact. It will for sure exponentially enhance personalized experiences, our efficiencies and convenience. At the same time, it raises fundamental questions like geographical boundaries that determine our legal systems and issues of personal privacy. There are already more connected devices than people on the planet, and there are about 26 billion connected devices on this planet as given by Gartner by 2020. The IoT vision enhances the notion of connectivity from anytime, any place for anyone to anytime, any place for anything. A consequence of network things is smarter processes and services which can support our economies, environment, and health. And of course, this means businesses have the opportunity of working smartly. Here is an example. We all heard of automobile companies recalling cars when a defect was identified. In a recent occurrence in the US, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration issued recalls for 2 vehicle models, a pickup truck from a major auto manufacturer with around 370,000 units and Tesla's Model S sedan with 29,000 units on road. A software update was required to be installed to reduce the risk of fire during an accident. The truck manufacturer had no option but to recall the 370,000 trucks, update software, bear cost, and damage to the brand value. On the contrary, all the Tesla Model S sedans were connected to the wireless all the time, so Tesla just pushed the software updates to each of its cars over the network when the cars were turned off. Thus, instead of suffering the blowback to the Tesla brand, it validated Tesla as one of the most forward-thinking car makers. As a result, this was touted as the best example yet of Internet of Things. I think GE Aircraft Engines has a similar example in terms of supply of engine to many airlines, how they are providing enhanced services by bundling new capabilities as in-flight diagnosis, prognosis, and health monitoring. In the utilities sector, gas, water, energy metering, usage analysis, and prediction results in smart network can result in substantial resource savings. In many Indian cities, the urban poor are restoring to stealing electricity from the power grids. One reason for the high cost of delivering these utilities to these areas is due to these leaks or thefts. Using sensors and connected systems of IoT, authorities will get more information on how to fix these problems. Thus, it has the potential to bring more effectiveness in the system, as well as bring about societal change by encouraging freeloaders to pay. On the other hand, a turbine in a power plant with real-time sensing of vital parameters can be managed remotely from a centralized center, providing for efficient operations and proactive actions for the utility. Clearly, Internet of Things fundamentally changes the industry in terms of sensing, information collection, analytics, and of course, service optimization. Enabling companies to adopt to this evolution would make them more successful globally. The future would see the shift of the manufacturing companies from the ICT automation-driven production to a connected manufacturing by deploying industrial internet using IoT, cyber systems enabling a connected shop floor, efficient in 3D printing, predictive diagnosis, prognosis, and of course the optimized supply chain. Having established the business advantage, perhaps we must look at a developmental agenda, especially from the perspective of emerging economies. For countries like India, which are largely agrarian, IoT can be hugely significant in terms of soil data through networks, meteorological data on the rainfall, etc. However, these technologies need to be low cost and affordable for a scalable solution. Another critical area is, of course, healthcare. Internet of Things would enable a connected, cost-effective way, easy-to-use healthcare system that would focus on preventive measures than curative. It will enable monitoring of elderly people, patients with chronic diseases remotely, and the number of visits of hospitals of the patients would be cut down drastically because of remote monitoring techniques. If you have seen the famous James Bond movie, Casino Royale, in the movie, when Mr. Bond faces a cardiac arrest while playing poker, he rushes to his car, connects himself to a health monitoring device. This device sends his vital parameters to the central M16 medical team, and the medical team remotely gives him instructions as well as treatment to resist the cardiac arrest. While this was a movie, the same can actually be replicated in real life with the power of Internet of Things. Most of the developing countries lack the software background and the capability to integrate physical world to the digital world. Organizations like Tata Consultancy Services specialize with a combined capability of the equipment and how to sense those data, but also in developing big data and analytics around it to manage the remote diagnostics part. While this can be viewed as a challenge, I see it as an opportunity of skill building as well as a job creation, because to keep pace with this third revolution of internet, each country would eventually have to embrace Internet of Things and upgrade and reinvent itself in the software world. Having said this, many countries are pushing the envelope on leveraging IT, including Internet of Things. As per the Global Information Technology Report 2014, published jointly by INSEAD, Cornell University, and the World Economic Forum, the countries leading the Network Readiness Index are Netherlands, Switzerland, US, and the UK. These countries have recognized the potential of ICT and are investing and leveraging the future of growth. I think at a recent event, the UK Prime Minister publicly urged the UK and Germany to work together on 3 specific areas: 5G, faster internet, quick enough to download a full-length feature film in less than a second, Internet of Things, and on strengthening the EU's digital single market. The UK Prime Minister has set up a $45 million funding for research in areas like linked with the Internet of Things, taking the total pot available to £73 million and a £1 million European Internet of Things grant fund to support companies who want to exploit some new opportunities. As you may already know, London's Heathrow is all set to become the first airport in the world to use IoT technology to rewire the experience of catching a flight. And while the US and Europe are moving ahead, China is establishing in leadership as well. This is not surprising given Asia leads with 40% of global M2M market. As we all know, M2M and IoT are closely linked, and China's success is being attributed to the collaboration between their mobile operators and state-owned enterprises. A dedicated unit called China Mobile Internet Things Limited has been established to develop IoT, and 3 verticals in particular are being focused upon: energy, transport, and smart cities. With the full backing of the government, it will be worthwhile to follow the growth of IoT in that country. The future of IoT raises 2 important questions: security and governance, but even before that, it is important to be sensitized with some related issues. This is the ethical aspect to Internet of Things. More and more personal data flowing through networks devices makes them susceptible to hackers. We need to redefine what is private and what privacy rights are. Can smart meters leak information on whether the user is at home? What rules shall govern companies to respect the confidentiality and seek permission prior to sharing this information? Again, due to multiple entries involved in the IoT, it is important to understand as to who owns your private data and who has the right to monetize it. Apart from the ethical aspect, there exist challenges which are technical, environmental, and social. Interoperability is the first basic challenge to IoT, as it involves different technologies and systems. It's important to have one standard approach so as not to reinvent the wheel every time something new is being developed. Open IoT platforms will encourage competition and innovation. Coming to device management, as devices are going to be spread across numerous locations, it will be a difficult task to ensure the operation as well as remote management of these devices. This also lends itself to problems of updating the devices, which cause security issues. As IoT expands to its full potential, the enormity of the data generated cannot be ignored. We need to store and manage huge data volumes. We will need to build more data centers across the world. Data processing, networking, and storage will consume enormous amount of energy. This challenge is partly being addressed by industry focused on producing low-power devices that are just a small part of the solution. The world's energy demands are predicted to rise exponentially. There's a lot of rare earth elements and heavy metals which go into the manufacturing of these small devices, and their disposal produce pollutants which are not very easy to recycle. So there is a lot of environmental issues to think about. Security aspects, the most visible challenge to security comes from the small size and power of these devices. With modern cryptanalysis advances, there is a certain minimum key size and algorithm complexity requirement needed to secure devices from any malicious attack. As the devices used in IoT are so small that most of these techniques are not really suitable to use, making them susceptible to data leaks. IoT can have multitude of devices across technologies, including old archaic mainframe devices connected to new sensors. This creates a problem during any updates. If a security issue is found in such a device, it's likely that the thousands of already deployed in the field devices will remain unpatched due to a variety of reasons like connectivity, size, etc. In fact, it's not even certain that a patch will be available from the manufacturer. Sustained support of this nature may be cost prohibitive. The idea of advanced persistent threats is by now well known in the security industry. Due to the upgradability issues in IoT, such devices will probably play a big part in the persistent aspect of APTs. If attacks on IoT devices spread such as hacking a connected car or hacking a traffic light, threats to physical and personal safety issues will become more acute. Since IoT devices can also be used for surveillance, it's very important that such devices are secure, especially after what we know from the recent Snowden episode. Unfortunately, governance, regulations, and ethical code of behavior with regard to privacy and data have lagged behind the technology development. IoT is only exacerbating the problem. Let's learn a lesson from the past. When it comes to protecting our environment, we failed to set in place governance norms for all nations. Today, we see a real threat to the planet before us. With cybersecurity on the rise, we need to step back and formulate global governance norms on how we as a people cut across national differences and work towards making the world more secure. There does not exist any governance on the usage of IoT. Basic questions like who owns data, who has the stewardship of the data, who determines what data standards are to be set, and where is the data to be kept, who has the access to the data, and who has the right to monetize it. IoT involves interconnected devices, hence questions also arise about where and in which device does the data reside. All these questions are valid and important. Unfortunately, there is no black and white answer to these questions. I think conferences such as these help us promote ideas and solutions to these issues. I too have a set of recommendations to make. I believe we need to set in motion an institutionalist mechanism for IoT governance. Multi-stakeholderism is essential with representation from governments, business, and civil society. This will also help in sharing and deployment of best practices for cybersecurity in IoT. We need to define limits of privacy and its protection. This requires a general agreed upon framework on guarantees that an individual has in terms of cyber liberties. Perhaps it's time for privacy bill of rights for all the world's citizens. Recent revelations about global surveillance by governments have created a stir indicating a need to establish legal frameworks for dealing with issues regarding territorial jurisdiction, data ownership, data preservation protection, and privacy. We all need to address the problem of existing cyber laws that do not carry enforcement provisions. Open standards and frameworks for interoperability of devices in IoT needs to be created. The free market should be able to decide whether to pursue an open standard or closed standard as IoT progresses. Global service providers such as Google, Microsoft, Twitter, Yahoo, and Facebook must cooperate with law enforcement agencies in all countries in response to their requests for investigations. Last but not the least, we need to begin by teaching our children cyber ethics in our schools so that we raise responsible netizens for the future. I would therefore like to propose the idea of an international cyber treaty organization that would set up rules of the road for international cooperation on crime, together with an appropriate fund to finance cooperation as needed. Set up the rules of the road and a process to assess when a country has gone over the line in acts of cyber war, together with an appropriate sanctions regime. Set up a privacy bill of rights for citizens worldwide that prevents unwarranted intrusion into their private lives. Finally, I would like to say that technology can be both an accelerator and an enabler for the world of tomorrow. It provides the global community new opportunities to foster innovation that boost economic and social prosperity of developed and emerging economies. Reflecting back from the birth of the internet, we have come a long way. When we crystal gaze into the future, not just for the next few years, but for the centuries to come, technology will present possibilities that seem magical today. I cannot help but be reminded of ancient Indian scriptures that describe a highly advanced civilization guided by highly evolved sages who were master exponents of metaphysical skills, who had unlimited resources of energy, who traveled to the farthest stars and solar systems in sophisticated spacecraft. Indian scriptures talk of scientific and spiritual advancement in the same vein. One does not exist without the other. Perhaps spiritualism, modern science, ancient history have to learn from each other. perhaps mankind must be guided and inspired by the convergence of these ideas so that new technologies can be used responsibly and can become a powerful enabler for a progressive and a peaceful human race. Thank you very much.